What's up, Dork?
What's up, Eric?
Hey, riders, starting a new video series today, something I've wanted to do for quite a while. And the idea is to focus on career paths that may have changed by individuals who are looking to chase their passions instead of doing perhaps what they did previously. So I wanted to share this with you because I changed my own career path quite a while ago. And to say the least, it's worked out extremely well. I'm having a blast with what I do here with Ride Adventures. And again, I wanted to start showcasing some individuals who have taken these leaps of faith, shall we say, to follow their passion. And of course, specifically as it ties into motorcycles or power sports in general. So, you know, it's like everyone from Confucius to Mark Twain has said, if you find work that you'll love, you'll never work a day in your life. And again, by asking some interview type questions with these individuals, I hope to show you the possibilities, what risks they've had to take and how those things have worked out, some of the obstacles along the way. But again, the idea that we're not only helping people get into the motorcycle and the adventure riding type lifestyle, but also perhaps their careers can follow as well. So let's get into this. So here he is. You might recognize him as your internet riding buddy, the dork in the road, and a guy who, as I mentioned before, has made his career now out of adventure riding and motorcycles and finding the latest and greatest products and all sorts of pathways that you can follow and ride in this world of motorcycles and power sports. And to make it, you know, real clear for the record, and for those who don't know your first name, some of us don't feel comfortable calling you Dork. Okay?
I mean, I call myself Dork, so.
Okay, but some of us still are. So for the record, what is your first name?
My name is Ben, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, feel free to call me Ben.
Okay, and how's that spelled?
B, you still with me? E,
yeah.
Okay, this is the hard part. N.
All right. Do you know why you were named Ben?
I do.
Why?
This is my grandfather's name.
Oh, that's easy enough. Okay.
I had a grandpa Ben and a grandpa James, so they put them together and made Benjamin, which is my actual first name, but only my mom calls me Benjamin.
Well, enough of the formalities.
Right.
Anyway, so
That's
okay.
the deep, hard-hitting stuff that people really want to know. How did your parents name you?
And the spelling of it.
Yeah.
No, but thanks for joining. Cool to finally have you here.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for asking.
Talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
I met you in, what was it, early 2022 or something like that. Some of our team were talking with you about our training opportunities coming up and got you involved with a lot of that. And so in the spirit of shifting gears and changing careers, what is it you do now?
I do so many things. Thank you, Eric, by the way, for having me here. I'm so excited to be here and have the opportunity. My YouTube channel is called Dork in the Road. And I am a full-time YouTuber, and my channel is dedicated to, really, my mission statement of my channel is inspire, educate, and empower people to get out and have adventures of their own. At their own speed, whatever their pace is. I think as I was getting into adventure motorcycling and learning to ride both dual sports and adventure bikes, I saw a lot of content from really good riders, right? I always use the example of, you can watch a video of Poltara's launching a T7 20 feet out of a rock quarry, and there's tons and tons of content like that. But where's the content of people like me getting out there and just going camping or, you know, getting out and exploring the woods and just doing like normal things, right? You go to an ADV rally and you're surrounded by middle-aged people, right, who aren't maybe the most athletic. And there just isn't a lot of content out there for us, because that's how I would describe myself. So I wanted to be the content. I wanted to create the content that I never saw or never had, the inspiration, the education that I never got to see. So that's sort of the gist of my personal channel. And then I'm also fortunate enough to work with Giant Loop, the luggage company, great company here in Bend, actually, and I run their YouTube channel. And between those two things, I'm able to eke out a living these days as a full-time YouTuber and ADV dual sport rider and moto camper. So living the dream.
And the, what is it, name or moniker, your internet riding buddy,
yeah.
I think is clever beyond words. Where did that come from?
Oh, that's a great question. And it sort of evolved organically. It wasn't like, I didn't sit down and go, what would be a really cool tagline? It was more like an excuse for how crappy everything I made was. Like, no kidding. Like, okay, I'm not a good filmographer, right? I don't write scripts. I go off the cuff all the time. I sometimes have notes. So I wanted to communicate that this is not a professionally produced, hey, this is Anthony from Revzilla, watch us hide and ride kind of thing. I'm a dude that it's going to be just like you go to your buddy's house, you hang out in the garage, you have a couple beers, you either work on a bike or you talk about bikes. That's who I wanted to be to people. That's what I wanted to convey. And so this idea that I'm your internet riding buddy and I'm better than your regular riding buddies because I come with a mute button, right? How many times have you wished you could just shut the guy off that maybe just talks a little too much in your riding group? That sort of was born out of that.
It's clever, to
Thank
say
you.
the least.
Well, I'm glad I stumbled upon it.
Internet riding buddy is someone you can take with you.
Yeah,
You can leave at home.
right.
Kind of the best of all.
I'm always available, right? Well, you want to ride at 3 o'clock in the morning? I'm right there. Let's go. You're tired of listening to me? Turn that off.
So if that's what you'd call your job right now, as a full-time YouTuber?
Yeah, full-time content creator. I'm a channel manager, right? So that's my title, or what I do for Giant Loop. I'm their channel manager, and then obviously I create content for my channel and their channel.
Go back to that, though, leading up to all this. I mentioned it, I think, before your career. You were a teacher with the school district. Mm-hmm. What grade level?
So I taught high school, and then the last 2 years I was actually working at the district office, running a district-wide program. Still as a teacher. It was called Teacher on Special Assignment, but that was my job those last couple years. So I was out of the classroom, but still technically a teacher. It's funny. I always say I quit this job that I spent $70,000 to learn how to do for one I learned how to do on YouTube, because I don't have any formal filming training or editing training or anything. I learned it all from watching YouTube videos and from doing it. Everything I know.
Speaking of, I mean, talking about the leap of faith, that's difficult. You can't say that you've abandoned what you've learned and gained from that master's degree in is it called teaching, or what is it?
Mine is in teaching. Yeah, I have a
Okay,
master's in teaching.
So, like, I mean, you're never abandoning. It's like an experience. You know, you're still getting something out of it, I'm sure. In fact, some of what you learned in that has helped us, as I alluded to before, as our training program was newer new last year. Pretty much had it in place, but it was nice to have you come in and take one of the courses, 2, I think, and sort of comment and help us make sure we're hitting all the right points.
Yeah, and I think I learned a lot, and it was great to have the opportunity to help kind of build and refine this very unique, honestly, training. You know, it sounds like we're making a commercial, but I genuinely believe there is no other off-road riding training course quite like what you guys are doing, which is why I keep recommending it to people.
Glad to hear that. Obstacles over and over.
Right.
I think there's something to be said about integrating those drills and skills with the actual riding, the pause in between, and tying it all, reminding yourself why you're getting better at this obstacle or whatever you're trying to work on. So, yeah.
Yep. Real world application. That was always a cornerstone of my teaching. I always want to know, I always want to be able to answer the question, why are we learning this? Right. And not because it's in the state standards, but how will this benefit you? Why are you taking the time to learn this? And I think that's the same philosophy that informs what you're doing, except it's not, let me tell you that in the future you'll use this. It's like, because we're going to go over a tree right there. Like, so you need to know how to go over a tree because we're going to do it in a minute, you know, and I think that's great. Real world application.
Yeah. A little more fun too.
A lot more fun. Yeah.
That career though, that you were in previously, was there, I'm curious about the part, like there's such a thing as being drawn to this topic of motorcycles and adventure travel. There's, I mean, anyone who's perhaps, chained to the wrong situation in life dreams about doing things more adventurous like that and wants to travel. But like, were you actually seeing yourself not in the type of career that you were supposed to be in? Like, were you starting to realize this is not for me, teaching in any way, or was it just?
It continues to change. And, teaching through COVID was a whole nother experience.
Oh, that's right.
Which, a lot of people have left the profession. I didn't initially start doing YouTube with any intention of ever leaving. Like, I started teaching thinking this is my career, I'll retire from this and it'll be my legacy or whatever, right? But along the way, I got a motorcycle and then I bought a dual sport, and then I started to remember things that I really enjoyed as a kid. I grew up like exploring, going camping. When I was in high school, I would take my crappy old Toyota pickup and just go up as many logging roads as I could find, exploring the woods, and that was something I really loved, that and camping in the outdoors. And then I kind of sort of fell into this. It's something that I've kind of talked about in some of the presentations, like I've done at Touratech and stuff. This is a rut, easily, like is a routine, right? It's you get up, you go to work, and I was working 11-hour days, as a theater teacher, so it's like you get there at 7 a.m. and then you're at rehearsal until 6. It's dark when you get to work. It's dark when you go home. And I love the kids. I love making these things happen for them. My whole thing was about creating opportunities for kids, and particularly ones that I never had. But that's just a lot to do for a long time. And I started to remember that there was this other thing that I used to really like to do. And so when I sort of stumbled into motorcycling, and then it made sense to extend that to dual sport riding. And once I got back out into the outdoors in the wilderness, it was really like, oh my God, this whole part of me that's been locked away or dormant or whatever, like I love this stuff, and it really is like my element in the place that I want to be. I don't know, I think it comes across in my videos, but every damn time, and it doesn't even matter what I'm doing. Like just getting out there, I'm always stopping. I'm like, oh my God, so gorgeous. Oh my God, amazing. This is so fun. It's so beautiful. Stop and look at it. And you don't get that if you just never get outside of your bubble and your box, you know, outside of your day-to-day routine. And so there was no wonder. And now my whole life is wonder. I'm out there just, even if it's the same damn view I've seen 100 times, you know, because I go to the same places sometimes or close to the house or whatever. Every time I get out there, I'm like, God, this is amazing. It just feels right, you know? Well, all jobs are stressful, right? But when you deal with the stress, it's always nice to have perspective. Yeah. So I think, would I rather be doing this or lesson planning right now? Yeah. Right? Dealing with angry sophomores who didn't eat lunch or whatever. You know, it's like, I'm good. I don't care if it's raining. Like, this is more fun.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the bikes don't start. There are problems as
Right,
well.
right.
There's a possible downside to every career. There's getting stuck out there and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot more upside to being in a topic that we're passionate about.
Well, and being in charge of your own destiny, right? Like being your own boss sure is nice.
So when you announced to the family, I assume there had to have been like, hey, I'm going full time. Or you said the wife was involved because you talked about the finances.
So it's been an
like
ongoing conversation for years about what it would take to get there. Well, okay, actually, I had planned to pitch this idea to them before I went. So I presented. It was my first sort of presentation ever at that ride that year. I was one of the presenters, and so I was like, I'm gonna make this really good because in my head it's my audition, my interview, right? So I spent hours planning that presentation. Did like a half an hour TED Talk style about, you know, get off your ass and chase your dreams. Like that was the title, and through the lens of my own experience of learning and starting this motorcycling thing and getting back to this thing that I had always loved and enjoyed. So we had talked about it ahead of time and like thought about like, okay, how much would it actually take? What's the bare minimum, whatever, and then. So when I came back, I was like, we're gonna have a meeting, and then after the meeting, I had the numbers. So she was on board, and then my daughter was very supportive, and she's a Zoomer, so she gets it. Like she's like, oh yeah, you can make a living on YouTube, whatever. It wasn't like a conversation. Trying to explain it to my parents was a little bit different animal. I still don't think that my parents understand how I make money. Legitimately, I sometimes have to be like, no. See, they pay me, yeah, and it's awesome. They get the giant loop thing, so they see I have a job, right? I call it my day job, but they don't know how I make money on YouTube. My dad's probably watching this, so love you, Dad.
Trust us, he's doing okay. But now that you're in this full-time, shall we say, passion project, follow your dreams kind of a career, are there any back to my example of being out on Thursday afternoon doing my job? In my case, I've spent days, months on end researching routes, which means riding and taking notes and recording things and taking photos and stuff like that.
It's tedious.
Is there a guilty feeling that ever comes along with that, to think that this is what I'm doing, this is what I used to do? Is this possible? That guilty feeling, you know what that is at all? Like I remember specifically like this feeling of overindulgence. Like I used to do something else, and now I ride. Yeah, I feel very fortunate, right? Very lucky, and there's a lot of disbelief. Like, how the hell is this my job, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's a definite guilt, like, you know, it's work. There's lots of work, but it doesn't feel like it. So yeah, I definitely feel that.
I heard you have your first international trip coming up. Is that right?
Yeah, you heard?
I heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you hear about that?
A little birdie told me.
Right. So and it's really cool to think how far I've come. I feel like in a couple years, because it was literally last year I did my first multi-night motorcycle trip ever, right? And then I did the Washington BDR. I did a week this year, and I'm going to do the Oregon BDR this next year. And yeah, I'm going to Mexico. So Ride Adventures, which is a company you may have heard of, has graciously offered me the opportunity to come and do their Baja on Up tour with fans of the channel, right? Like the idea is that people can come with, and we can do this once in a lifetime bucket list trip together. So yeah, I'm going to do 10 days in Mexico, and that's going to be awesome.
The famous Baja.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Bucket list kind of, yeah, that's crazy to even think about. We're going international. So.
Well, and that's just the first one. Mm-hmm. But that was like our way of saying thanks to you again. When our program was new, I think we were probably 4 weekends of training into it or something like that when you came over from the other side of Oregon. And, my team and I, we appreciate just having somebody who has a professional teaching background. There's something to be said about being a good rider. Well, that's great, but can we communicate then what we need to the students in an effective way and stuff like that? And so your input on what we were doing has been appreciated, and that was a way to say thanks.
Yeah, it was really great to have the opportunity. You know, I haven't lost my love for teaching, right? It's not like I don't want to teach or help people anymore. And so it's so great to have the opportunity to combine those two passions and come up and you give me the opportunity to not only take the course, but then come back and be a coach and help give that really valuable real-time, not just feedback, which is very valuable, but also encouragement. I think people need to hear that they're doing things well, and they need to have, you know, that reiterated and get that feedback in real time. It's one thing to practice on your own. It's another for someone that you know and trust to say, oh, you're crushing it right now. You're doing a great job. Or you're doing so many things well, but if you were just to use your clutch a little more, and then they do it and they come back like, oh my God, that works so well, right? That sort of real-time opportunity to improve is huge. So it's a great setup, and I really enjoy that and seeing people improve. Seeing the slow race on the first day, right, to the end of the second day when they're tearing up sandy, rocky trails, right, on these big bikes that they could barely do a U-turn on the first day. It's amazing. So it's really fun.
I love that we had people who showed up for the introductory course and were about to touch dirt or gravel for the very first time with their front wheel. That's a fun moment for me to think about being there.
Yeah, that's cool.
What does that first moment lead to in their riding careers?
Right, they'll never forget it either.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that thought, I've always used the example, you can ride the same way home from work every day for the rest of your life and always wonder when you go, where does that dirt road go? I wonder where that goes. Well, now some of these guys, Igor and other guys that came in for the first time, now they go find out where it goes and come back and then go do more. So
yep,
that's
my favorite.
Fun part of what we're teaching. Any trepidation?
I mean, not the typical. I mean, the fact that Tyler's going to be there makes me feel better, and that I know him, right? And that's why that's why I keep reiterating this in all the videos when I talk about it. It's like, yeah, he's got it. He's got it figured out. You know, because you hear things, but you guys run successful tours all the time, and so I think the trepidation and the sort of fear that people have about foreign countries, Mexico in particular. You know, you hear isolated incidents, you hear things, but if there was really an issue consistently, I don't think you'd be running tours up and down the peninsula all winter. I have concerns, but I am not concerned about my concerns.
So just more about Ben and what it's like when you go full-time YouTube and whatnot like that. So far, you edit your own videos, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
So how much of your life have you spent staring at yourself on the screen?
Too much. I mean, thousands of hours. I mean, I have 700 videos now, so a lot of time. But then I like watch my own videos, trying to. My wife's always like, "Oh, you're narcissistically watching yourself," and it's actually the opposite. It's like I want to understand how this comes across to someone else. Like, do I look like an idiot? Did the thing I was trying to convey come across? I don't know. So I'm always like watching and trying to improve. So not only have I stared at myself on the screen in the editing room, but I also then watch my own videos.
I was just gonna say, what's the wisest thing you've ever done? That's such a random, wide open question, but like
This interview.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously.
What's the dumbest thing you've ever done?
This interview.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I fell off a ramp a week ago and sprained my ankle, so maybe that.
What's your most painful experience?
Painful? Like physically painful?
I thought you were gonna say this interview.
Yeah. Well, God, that's a loaded question. I could tell you the most recent, very painful mistake or decision I made, which was trying to load a motorcycle in the rain on an uphill slope with a footstool that was unstable on uneven ground, and I didn't warm it up, so it was a carbureted bike, and I got to the top of the ramp. It died, started to slide backwards, tried to readjust my feet, stepped on the edge of the stool, it flipped, I landed on the side of my ankle, bike came off the ramp on top of me, so I was pinned underneath it with a sprained ankle and gasoline pouring out of the carburetor onto me, and took a minute to evaluate myself. I was like, okay, I don't think anything's broken. How am I going to get out from underneath this? Because it was just perfectly pinning me down. So I like scooched out, like on the ground, just enough to get to where I could get my arm under the handlebar and lift it up and get it off of me. But that was about 14 stupid decisions. And it's the kind of thing, it's like I've done this 100 times. Right? I've loaded a motorcycle in the back of my truck 100 times. And I'm just like, I got this, right? Was not thinking about it. So I was like, it's slippery. I'll be fine, you know? And I was not fine because I was not safety conscious. And so I always get comments. You talk about I talk about like the importance of wearing gear, right? When you're riding and when you're learning. I talk about the importance of wearing boots, the right boots for off-road riding. And I always get comments about like, oh, you're pansy or blah, 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 whatever. But the second you don't do those things or the one time you don't, or it doesn't matter, your number is going to come up. And so it may not happen 100 times, but there's the one time that you make a hasty, poor decision, and the next thing you know, you're pinned on the ground under a motorcycle with a sprained ankle with gasoline pouring out on your pants. And the worst part is I didn't get it on film. So
Oh, no, I was going to ask. I did see, though, the slip on the ice, I think.
Thank God the ring camera got that. Yeah.
Good catch. The ring camera also caught the wife breaking her foot.
It did. Yep. I have that on video.
Ring camera is a staple for a YouTuber, in other words.
Dude, well, you ever watch like the Fail Army videos? Half of them are ring camera videos. It's always people falling down their stairs and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So, thank God.
Got a bunch of rapid fire questions.
Okay. You want rapid fire answers?
Let's see how they come out.
You're playing with fire, Eric.
What was your first motorcycle?
Honda CB500F 2016.
I thought they had an R and an X, but no.
There's also an F. It's the upright, naked street bike.
Good bike?
It was. I should have got the X, but I didn't know I was going to want to do adventure riding. I was intimidated by the seat height of the X. I was like, that's too tall. I can't get on that because I couldn't flat foot it, right? You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So that's why I always say to people that are like, well, seat height. And I'm like, yeah, but that becomes less of a concern as you become a more confident rider. So don't make your whole decision based on that.
And how long did you have that?
I had it over a year, but I bought my 250L 6 months later, and it didn't really get rid much after that. So I sold it.
Because you're more in the dirt, having more.
I was like, okay, this is where it's at. Like that bike was a lot of fun.
Best day of riding ever.
So probably it wasn't the riding itself, but the day we finished the Washington BDR is like one of my best memories of riding because that trip was so fraught. Because we had a guy break his leg on the second day, and then we lost 2 more riders that day, which we thought they had like just gone home, but it turned out they just left before us and were ahead of us the whole time. I didn't know that. And then we lost another rider because he had a family thing come up. So we started with 6 and ended with 2. And so it was really good to get that done, to finish it. It was a huge relief, and we were just so stoked to have come through all that. So that's a day I look back on very fondly.
Like I would tend to think scenic days sometimes are like the best, most incredible, but sometimes it's those challenges when things all come together and you find a way and it's not perfect. Or
it's the relief of being finished.
And pure adventure along the way, all the things you have to overcome. It's the cool part of all this. Yeah.
Yep.
It's all easy. Why would we do it, in a way?
Right. It's not adventure.
The bike you've had your eye on, but just hasn't made sense to get it, or it's kind of hard to find at this point, or... Oh,
man, there's so many. Like, okay, here's a controversial one that fans of my channel will be like, what? But I've never ridden a 701 or a 690, and I'm honestly afraid I would like it too much. I'm honestly afraid it would be the bike that I can screw around on trails and feel very confident because it's so lightweight, but at the same time be able to handle lots of highway riding if I needed it to, And I go back and forth on KTMs. I had a Husqvarna, I had the Norden, but that's one that I'm afraid if I ride it, I'll really like it. So I haven't, but I'm hopefully soon I'm going to get a chance to test ride a 690, maybe even keep it for a little while.
Great engine.
Yeah.
Especially at sea level. And it's just, to me too, like if I may say, you're a bigger guy like myself, and like sometimes the 250-pound bikes just don't quite feel like it's nice to have something around 320, 330. It's maybe slower in the whip sections and stuff like that. You can't quite keep up with the 250cc bikes, but everything else, it's a riot to ride like a 690 or a 701. Fun bike. Any preference over European or Japanese bikes?
Is that a serious question? Well, Did you not watch my videos?
I've seen your video.
No, I am a Japanese motorcycle guy, and it started out with really was a product of my lack of mechanical confidence and skill, like whatsoever. I just wanted a bike that was just going to work, right? I don't want to work on it. I don't want to mess with it. I don't even want to have to do maintenance if I get to where I forgot to lube the chain or go a little longer in an oil change. And it sure is nice when you're out in some of the places that we get into to have absolute confidence that motorcycle is going to start when you hit the button every single time. And that's not to say that, European bikes are statistically less reliable. And anecdotally, that has been my experience. I'm not saying necessarily that they're bad. And I have owned one, and I was very successful with it. No issues. But I'm definitely a Japanese guy. I'm willing to give up the power for the reliability.
Regular or decaf?
What is the point of drinking coffee if you're not getting caffeine?
The one album
Ooh, okay.
If there was one that's the best album ever, the one that has given you the most hours of enjoyment, the one that you started with years ago and still every time you hear it, and it can't necessarily be a best of.
Damn
by
it.
an artist.
I knew you
Yeah,
were
I know
gonna
that's
say that.
you can mention that as a runner-up, but it really needs to be like, because I don't even know. Do people make albums anymore? Or is it all singles? I don't even
They
know.
do,
but it's
but-
like I tend to think that's like sort of a lost art form. If you can find that one album that has the least down,
Yeah.
the least mediocre, but the most enjoyment.
Well, I mean, the one you said, the one I've listened to the most, and that is probably Crossroad Bon Jovi, because it has, but that's their greatest hit, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's all other greatest hits. Because my favorite song of all time, like hands down, if I had to listen to one song on repeat for the rest of my life, "Living on a Prayer." You can't beat it. Best song ever made. Like, forget about it. But if I had to pick one album, it would either be something obscure, like I'm a big Bad Religion fan from back in the day. My first album of theirs was Stranger Than Fiction, so maybe that one. Nobody's ever heard of it, so let's go with something people have heard of. So probably Linkin Park, maybe their first album. That was a great. That one or their second. Those were really good.
All right. Most underrated movie of all time.
Army of Darkness. Bruce Campbell. Local Oregon boy, Bruce Campbell. Classic.
Unfamiliar.
Yeah, well, I'm sad for you because it's actually the third in the series, Evil Dead. Bruce Campbell, he's from Wisconsin or something, but he lives in Jacksonville now, and he's this like the king of B movie. Like if I showed you a picture, you'd recognize him, but you wouldn't know where you knew him from because he's been in so many random B movies. But yeah, Army of Darkness, hands down, the cheesiest film ever made.
You know, again, thanks for being sort of a friend of the company, so to speak, and having come over and participated in our training programs and everything. But
Yeah, I'm very happy for the opportunity.
in the spirit of what we were originally talking about, just that people's career paths and lifestyles change and things like that, I wonder if there's still an opportunity for yours to take on even further change. And I'm wondering, how can we combine sort of like the expertise that myself and my fellow guides have and our instructors with all this riding and background with your expertise and similar subject matter. And then again, that professional background in teaching. You said something interesting last night about our curriculum, that how can we combine all that so that maybe there's even yet a new path ahead for your career and what you're doing? Like, could you end up actually teaching?
Well, it's almost a step backwards rather than a step forward, right? Back into something familiar.
But isn't that the interesting thing, that you could
Yeah.
do this?
Right.
When you were teaching full time, did you ever think I could end up teaching motorcycles?
No. Well, I mean, I had like toyed with the idea of maybe trying to do the Team Oregon thing at one point, but no, because especially when I started riding off road, I never thought I'd get to the point where I would feel comfortable trying to teach someone else, because I myself was not that skilled. But I think having that experience and knowing what it's like to start later in life rather than being a kid who grew up on dirt bikes and being young and fearless, I think that's very valuable for teaching people who are trying to get into it. So I love the idea of the opportunity, like I said, to combine two of my passions, two of my life's works, right, into a more formal sort of training. And I love what you guys do. I think it's aligned with my philosophy. Like my mission statement for my channel is inspire, educate, and empower people to have adventures of their own, right? And well, you guys really do a good job of educating and empowering people.
I had not seen that on your website. You said it is?
It's my mission statement.
Mission statement of the brand, so to speak.
It's on Instagram. Yeah, it's what I try to come back to, right? Like, is what I'm doing any of these things or all of these things? And if it isn't, then I try not to do it.
Neat how much that actually ties into what we are trying to do, what I want to do with the brand. In some ways, I would say I've done the writing. I've done it. And now I want others to do it.
Yeah.
I want them to be inspired to take leaps of faith like the one that you took and go out and see that it is possible. Maybe not to shift your career and do what you have done. Maybe folks are not doing that whole path, but to get on a motorcycle if that is their interest and see where it takes you to, because it's pretty amazing how it's worked out for both of us, I would say, at this point.
Well, and that's the whole point of my channel. Is like, I want you to see yourself in me because I want you to do what I'm doing. I want you to see that it's possible, and I want to show you how to get there, right? Which is what you guys do.
And I mean, we're there from the technical standpoint of helping training, and of course the products and the web store and all that kind of stuff. But also, it's messages like the one I saw on your going full-time YouTube, that video from a year and a half, 2 years ago, or whatever it was, that like literally inspired me. It reminded me to some extent of, I took a leap of faith at one point too. I had a different career before all this, and so I hope that message is seen. In fact, I want to make sure we put a link to that video of yours in the description somewhere in this video, because I think it's just really neat to think about what a moment that is in one's life. I mean, you could go back to your old career, but I'm very serious and genuine when I say nice job, cool that you did it, and glad that it's working out. You got Mexico ahead and probably many other places, and a lot of cool people to meet, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, like cool people like you, like things people I would have not have met, things I would not have done had I never shifted this path. And that's been one of the greatest things. I made that video, 7 things I wish I'd known, right, before I started. And one of them is I've met so many amazing people and created relationships, right, business relationships, friendly relationships. And it's been really cool.
Thank you, Ben, for coming in. Yeah. First interview.
Thanks for the opportunity. You crushed it, Mr. Letterman.
Letterman.
Yeah.
Not quite that funny, but I'm trying.
Give it time.
Cool seeing you. Thanks for coming to Bend.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. See ya. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this video, if you want to see more of it, I'm very sincere about that idea about trying to dig into other people's career paths and their choices and how they find their way into power sports. This isn't just being YouTubers. This is how people find their passion for engineering and maybe want to get into making everything better in the world of power sports. And so there's so many paths I want to explore like this and find out how is it that people are making these changes and how it's going for them.